Some of life's greatest mysteries. Why is the sky blue? Why is the grass green? What on earth is going on at Chelsea? As somebody who's not a Chelsea fan, it's very easy to sit back and just laugh. But is it possible to answer what on earth is going on? I don't actually know, but we're gonna try. It all started on May the 6th, 2022, when Todd Boehly bought Chelsea. He spent a staggering £4.25 billion, and from there, he started his destruction. In this summer's transfer window so far, Chelsea have spent €189 million. Last year, in the 23-24 season, Chelsea spent a staggering €464 million. In the 2022-2023 season, Chelsea spent €630 million. That means over the start of this season and the two previous seasons, they've spent around about €1,283 million on players. In the same period of time, they've sold $447 million worth of players, meaning that, well, the net spend is like about $800 million or something ridiculous. You know when you have that one friend who doesn't really watch football, doesn't really play football, but starts a FIFA career mode and starts just buying players? Yeah, we've got one of those situations in our hands. Only it's not FIFA, it's real life, and we're talking about billions in real life money, which is mental. However, there's been a bit of a change in trend. In past years, Chelsea have thrown hundreds of millions at players that are clearly not worth the money, such as Moises Caicedo, €116 million. Yeah. Romeo Lavia, €62 million. Has he even played a game? Enzo Fernandez, €121 million. He's a decent player, but that is an insane fee. Mikhailo Mudryk, €70 million. 65 million for Cucurella. Come on. 41 million for Koulibaly. I'm sure at the time he was like 75 years old anyway. Well, this season it looks like they've gone for a bit of a different tactic. They've thrown slightly less amounts of money at players that nobody has ever really heard of. Now just quickly, if you are enjoying the video, make sure to subscribe to the channel. We're very close to 1,000. And leave a like, it boosts the video in the algorithm. Now the crazy thing is they've already spent €52 million on players that they're not going to get until next season. In the squad, they currently have 6 goalkeepers, 7 centre-backs, 12 central midfielders, that's including defensive midfielders, centre midfielders and attacking midfielders, and 6 strikers. Who would ever need 6 goalkeepers in the squad? It's all a bit baffling. You'd think with endless team selection choices that they would, well, be doing well. They've got a ridiculous squad. Well, the league finishes are nothing short of shocking. You've got to say as well, Pochettino did relatively well towards the end of the season. I mean, the club is obviously in a complete and utter shambles. It's in a mess, and for anyone to step in and do a decent job, it's not really that bad. But obviously they've gone and sacked him. Now, a huge issue realistically is since Ted Boehly took over, they've had 6 different managers. That is crazy. They've had 6 different managers in just over 2 years. Thomas Tuchel was manager when he took over Chelsea. He got sacked. Then they got Graham Potter, who was given 6 months, which is just it's abysmal, to be honest. He was then sacked. Then they had like a caretaker manager, which was Bruno Salta for 1 game. And then after performing pretty terribly in 2019, 2020 and 21, they decided they had no other option other than to give Frank Lampard another shot of the job, which went horribly. He was given 11 matches, and achieved 0.45 points per game. He was absolutely set up to fail. That's so unfair. Then along came Pochettino, who was given 51 matches, 365 days, so a full year, and he averaged 1.78 points per game. That is Chelsea's best manager average in terms of points since they had Tuchel, which was 2.08 points per game. Tells me to the fact that they sacked Tuchel was a little bit silly, considering they never actually had any real success prior to that. We'll be going back like nearly 10 years until someone really matched him. It is terrible management. It really is. I mean, not by the manager. It's terrible management by whoever's making the decisions, whether it's Todd Boehly or somebody else. Now Enzo Maresca is in charge of Chelsea. Of course, lost his first game to Man City, which was pretty expected. Todd Boehly walked off in a strop before the end of the game. What was he expecting? Now, I must say that Chelsea have always had a pretty bad reputation when it comes to ruthlessly sacking managers after not really giving them enough time. Here's a crazy stat for you. The last time that Chelsea had a manager that had the Chelsea job for over 200 days, the man was called Dave Sexton. He took over Chelsea as manager in October the 1st, 1967, and left on October the 3rd, 1974. So, the last time Chelsea had a manager who was given more than 200 games, we're going back, what? It's now 2024. We're going back 50 years. Now, it's clear that Chelsea are in quite a lot of trouble when it comes to financial fair play. Hence, some of the transfers that have been going on. They pretty much had no choice other than to sell Conor Gallagher, who, other than Cole Palmer, was probably the best player last season. I don't think many Chelsea fans are very happy about the way it's happened. He's basically been forced out the door, and they've not really had a choice but to just get rid of him. It's very, very, very difficult to understand what is going on and what anybody is actually trying to achieve. Whether it is Todd Bowley or whether it's somebody else making the decisions, nothing seems to make sense. What was the need to go and splash 75 million euros on Mikhailo Mudryk? A question that there will never be an answer to because there is no correct answer. Don't get me wrong, he's probably a decent player, but nobody really ever heard of him. He never really proved himself in any league. He played in the Ukrainian league with Shakhtar. Sure, maybe he had a couple of decent performances in the Champions League. But there's just no other team in the world that would go and offer 75 million euros. It's almost like there's not even a negotiation. It's like, what's the price? Oh, we want 150 billion for this stick that I found on the floor. You know what? No, I'll give you 170. Deal. It would be interesting to just listen in on a negotiation, or if there is even a negotiation. But like realistically, whoever the manager that they put in is set up to fail. They've got so many players. How are you ever going to know what your best team is when you've got so many different options? I mean, honestly, there's not really any wonder they've not really been doing very well. But it's just I can't put up a good answer. There's no real good answer as to what they're even doing and what is going on. So something else that's really strange that I've noticed is well, this season Chelsea have started the season without a kit sponsor, and last season Chelsea started the season without a kit sponsor. And the reasoning behind it is interesting, but it's also funny. So they initially started last season without a kit sponsor because they weren't able to secure a long-term sponsorship deal for the money that they want. The reason being is because they weren't in the Champions League. So instead what they did is they took a deal, a relatively cheaper deal, I think it was for about £40 million, for the sponsorship just for a one-season contract. So that's why they don't have the same sponsor from last season, is because there was only a one-season contract in place. So now they're seeking another one-season contract, and then hoping they'll get in the Champions League and then get a long-term sponsorship deal. It just seems really, really convoluted and silly. It's clear that whoever's pulling the strings is completely and utterly money-motivated, and this is obviously something they're putting a lot of thought and effort into. Who starts a season without a sponsor? That's like a League One thing to do. That's like a Sunday League thing to do. Oh, we've not got a sponsor. Oh, we'll ask around with everyone's family and see if we can get such a body down the road who's selling a bike to sponsor our top or something. It's not like that at all, but it just seems a bit bootleg. And of course the reason behind it is money, because they're thinking if they can get the Champions League, they can secure a long-term deal for more money. You know, obviously if they're already committed to that deal and they happen to not get in the Champions League the season after, they'll still be getting paid more money than they would have if they would have been on a short-term deal. It's silly. Just the sheer amount of signings that Chelsea have made, and looking through them, you've got to question if any of them have really had a proper game. Have any of them had proper minutes? If you're a Chelsea fan, do you ever watch Chelsea and they bring just a random player on for the last like 5 or 10 minutes? But you just have to think, but who actually is this? I forgot we had this guy. Does that ever happen? Because I feel like it probably would. The amount of like 16, 17-year-olds that they've ended up paying between 15 and 25 million for is actually insane. Some of them not playing at all, and some of them getting 5 or 10 minutes the whole season. It's insanity. And realistically, as a sort of misery compiler, It's looking more and more likely that Chelsea are going to get a point deduction and also a transfer ban at some time in the near future. And you might be thinking, well, I'm not surprised considering how much money they've spent, and, well, you've got to consider the net spend. It's ridiculous. It's got nothing to do with what's happened over the past few years with Todd Bowley. It's got everything to do with what had happened for, you know, the years prior to that when Abramovich was in charge. There was definitely some dodgy stuff going on. And it almost seems like it's just the tip of the iceberg. If they're going to end up with punishment for what has happened in the past, then I can only think what's going to happen, you know, in response to the past few years. Because there's no way they've purchased all of these players, you know, within the rules of FFP. I just don't believe it. At the start of the video, I said I was going to try and discover what is actually going on at Chelsea. And it's a much more difficult question to answer than it seems at face value. It's a mess. In my opinion, I just think Todd Bowley doesn't know what he's doing, which is not great when put in charge of realistically one of the biggest football clubs in the world. And I think he's already got them into a pretty big mess. And you know what? Fair enough. If he proves me wrong, and they, you know, they qualify for the Champions League and they can compete and they can somehow manage all these players they've got, then fair enough. But I just personally don't see it happening. But I really don't know what's going on. It is a complete and utter mess. Full stop. It has been a while since the last video. Didn't intend for it to be so long. I've just had a lot on, really. It won't be so long until the next one. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, then maybe you should take a look at my previous video. It should be on the screen right now. We took a look at the 3 newly promoted teams to the Serie A, their previous bankruptcies, and some mafia involvement. It's an interesting one. Anyway, if you enjoyed today's video, make sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next one.